Yeah, I mean, Holland, can he really? What smack can he talk after another kind of quiet match from him?
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
All right, we are live.
We're
Josh,
officially
say
live.
hello to our YouTube watchers, and let's get the pod started.
Okay. Hail cheaters, welcome to the Always Cheating podcast. It is Sunday evening. Happy Easter to those who celebrate Easter, or I guess to people who do Easter bunny stuff in their household. It's very interesting actually doing the Easter bunny. It's like how do you sort of mete out the presents, right, for the Easter bunny?
Hmm.
Clearly it's not Christmas level, right? But is there a big present, or do you just go
Yeah.
candy? Do you throw in some like real stuff? It's very
Also,
tricky.
how do you analyze the behavior of a giant bunny? At least what we know about Santa Claus is we know approximately what time he's going to
Yep.
arrive. Sometime
Yep.
after nightfall, he's going
Yep.
to enter through the chimney.
Yep.
The Easter Bunny we need more lore, I guess. We need a spin-off series like Game of Thrones style to
We really
explain
do.
the origin of the bunny, what they're about, what their powers are, etc.
Yeah, it's true. It's really undercovered, right? I feel like there like a rock movie. Maybe he's the Tooth Fairy.
Tooth
He's
Fairy.
but okay. That's okay. Well, one of the Tooth Fairy is kind of the same thing, though,
Sure.
right? Where
Yeah,
the
in the same
same
boat.
similar lack of lore around it. So here we are, Brandon. It's Easter Sunday, game week 30 just concluded. Early conclusion to game week 30 this time. I
Yeah.
always like that because then we can read off the always cheating Super League top 10. Interesting match. Man City Arsenal, which we'll get to in a second. A great weekend overall. I actually
Yeah.
think possibly the single worst match of the weekend was the last match of the weekend. I thought that it was cagey. I think I I guess Arteta will take it. I mean, he's now 2 points back of Liverpool.
Yeah, you go into
Feels
this
yeah.
match as Arsenal with it effectively in your hands. I mean,
Yep. Yep.
easier said than done to just win the rest of your games, especially when one is at the Etihad. So
Sure.
now it's no longer in their hands, but
Yeah.
to not lose that match, which I think everyone, well, I expected Arsenal to lose that match, and that's no shots at Arsenal. Amazing
Yeah.
team, but it's just the Etihad is historically not an easy place for any team to go play.
Yeah, and Man City's style this season has been a little less explosive. And
Hmm.
I think the one thing I really noticed in that match, just from a kind of non FPL point of view, was Gabriel Martinelli and Kyle Walker not being on the pitch really took a lot of the kind of dynamism out of the match. Right,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have Walker just sort of. I mean, on both sides, really. You didn't
Yeah.
have Walker with his kind of burst of pace down the right, and then obviously you didn't have kind of conversely, right,
Hmm.
Martinelli on on Arsenal's left, bursting down, and
Yeah.
and I felt like that it made the game a little stodgy. I thought like a
Yeah.
little kind of people ended up it was like a hockey game, where like you're sort of getting
Yeah.
forechecked,
Yeah.
against the glass a lot,
I
but
think
yeah,
if for the people, for the beautiful game people, you would argue for this match in that it just kind of like slowly ratcheted up as you got closer and closer to the 90 minutes. And it's hard for
yeah,
me to tell how much of it is the football or how much of it is the context. Obviously, the
right,
stakes of that match are so high that you as the viewer can't help but feel that. But you
yeah.
did feel like as City kept pummeling or kept pushing forward with the ball. Arsenal looked like they were like lower and lower on gas, but they were still sort of holding on to their organization. I enjoyed like the last 30 minutes or so.
You know, I, I didn't, but I don't want to come off overly sour because I actually
Yeah.
thought the matches were great throughout the weekend. I
Yeah.
thought it was fine. I just, from my perspective, I guess what I was thinking about as an Arsenal supporter, although Arsenal supporters, I think, have disowned me because I'm so. The problem is when you talk about fantasy twice a week, Brandon, as we have
Sure.
done for 8 years now or
Yeah.
whatever it
Your
is,
allegiances start to get a little hazy.
warped exactly.
Yeah.
And so yes, was I rooting for Arsenal in this match? Yes. It was a weird one for me because I had 3 Man City players and 0 Arsenal players, and so I was sort
Yeah.
of rooting for Arsenal to lose a clean sheet but still win, right? Like I was,
Hmm.
I wanted like a Rodri goal, followed by a Declan Rice brace or something like that. It's one of those like crazy combinations of situations. It's actually like the first half of Liverpool Brighton was kind of perfect for me, right? You get the Luis Diaz. Some people own Diaz, but he's not highly owned. You get the Danny Welbeck clean sheet goal, but man, Liverpool are going to win. So it was sort of like just knock a bunch of fantasy points out there.
Certainly, I think the biggest thing probably going into this weekend were the Salah haves and have-nots. And so you go into Sunday where the have-nots have secured their Son points, they've secured their Cole Palmer points, and now Salah owners are in the position of where they have to effectively match to keep up. And then the first half of Liverpool Brighton, Salah could have had 7 goals. It was incredible the spaces he was finding himself in. We got away with murder there, Josh.
The most shots he had ever taken in a Premier League match.
Really?
Yeah. That is true by like 2. So the most shots he ever taken in a Premier League match, ends up with 0 bonus points. Again, sometimes I feel like the game is a little too punishment based. A
lot of shots off target was probably what dinged him the most.
Yeah, but I almost feel like just that sheer number of shots should be rewarded, not like punished for being off target. Like you want him to be taking shots, like whether you're talking about fantasy or real life. Like you want him to be doing that. He's their best player. You want him taking lots of shots because you don't know what kind of chaos that's going to create, right? When he's involved in that. And he almost had he could have had a brace if it wasn't for the late stop in the second half of that match. Had a great pass to Diaz where Diaz could have scored a brace himself, just very, very marginally offside. Like one of those, you really couldn't even tell when they drew the lines. Honestly, it was a great job by the linesman to flag that offside because it was, it was incredibly tight, but actually accurate in the end. So
let's credit the linesman and not the robot at Stockley Park who presses a button. So.
Well, that's right. All they did was confirm the call in that case, right? Confirm that they were correct. Right. So,
and then there was, of course, the non-assist, and you and I would agree on this that it just wasn't a fantasy assist. And I, whether letter of the law, et cetera, how clear is the fantasy law on the assist? But
relatively uncontroversial. But I don't have Salah, so it's easy for me to say that, right?
But the fantasy game has done stranger things than give that as a Salah assist.
A little Netflix tie-in there.
Yeah.
Strange.
Stranger thing. Great series just became a great way to analyze FPL. So I could have seen him going.
That's exactly
the higher owned players will get the benefit of the doubt, right?
That's exactly right. And it doesn't always have to be Opta based, right? Because Opta wouldn't consider an assist if a player has a shot and it's saved and then someone scores off that's an FPL assist, not a real assist. So when Salah threw it into the mixer, which is kind of what he did, right? It's like a classic move. Like it's a loose ball you throw into the box, and
you've already got the big guys already in the box because it's a set piece.
Exactly. Yeah. I think if it had been a corner, right? Like if it had been a corner kick and it had gone kind of into the box and fallen to Diaz, I think maybe then it's an assist. But I think just because it was such a loose ball that was really undirected. I mean, if anything, it was going to Van Dijk or whatever. It wasn't going to anybody really. He basically lobbed it behind his back. Like there's no way he was picking Diaz out on that ball, right? I mean, it sort of fell to him. But it fell to him as a result of a really poor clearance from. Was it? I actually can't remember who it was.
Who would have been trying to clear the ball? That would it have been Muder? Who generally takes the right hand side for Brighton. I mean, the Brighton defensive back line is more or less non-existent since Estupiñán's fell out of fantasy favor.
Interesting match because, so 2-1, but it felt, incredibly one-sided. Did you have a chance to watch any of the Man United Brentford Man United match yesterday?
I watched the entire match. Now, I have some company in town right now, and I was doing the delicate dance. I consumed a good 45 minutes of the...
And to be clear, not company like a bunch of your sports loving friends. It
No,
was your
my wife's
art,
friends.
your wife,
Yeah.
your art museum
Yeah.
wife's friends.
So I was in the Aja Khan Islamic Art Museum during the second half of the midday fixtures yesterday. So
Yep.
I was like trying to not bump into priceless artwork while constantly refreshing my FootMob
Yep.
app on
Yeah,
my
yeah.
phone. So when we inevitably got back to the apartment, I said, "All right, little something for Daddy," and I
Yep.
had everyone sit down and watch Brentford Manchester United, and I had to explain to them the phrase of not a great advertisement for the Premier League because that was
Well, I don't know
I thought
about
it was a
that.
poor match.
I I guess it's funny because now we're gonna flip because
Okay,
I thought it was kind of an interesting match.
go on.
I didn't think Man United played well. I mean, it was a poor match from their perspective, but I thought Brentford were terrific, and it was just a little bit of I mean, sure, like the finishing could have been better. I mean, Ivan Toney could have had a 20-point return in that match. He was absolutely incredible. Just didn't quite finish a couple of times, but I thought it was just interesting to watch them just annihilate Man United. I mean, if that it was a 1-1 draw, but it was
Yeah,
like that might like I feel like if I was like a newspaper headline writer, I would have been like Man United lose 1-1, right?
yeah.
Because it was like
Well,
it was
and it
effectively a loss for them. I mean, not
echoes
in
of
terms of the
the
final
echoes of the
score.
reverse tie where Manchester United get annihilated by Brentford and are losing 1-0, and then McTominay comes on in like the 85th minute and
Right.
scores those two
Scores.
goals at the end of
That's
the
right.
match.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
and Brentford historically have had Manchester United's number. So it's always going to be an unpredictable affair with them.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's Brentford at night is just like there's something about an evening match at was it the G Tech? Is
Yep,
that the name of their
that's
stadium?
right.
And
Yep.
an evening match at the G Tech just always seems to deliver, right? I love yeah, I don't know, just like I knew they were gonna get some kind of return out of that match because they're just so I honestly wish like someone could explain it, like why they are so good. Maybe I don't think all teams are that good in evening matches. Like there's
Yeah.
something that's special about
Well, they have the
West
word
London and
Hollywood
evenings.
written on their kits, Josh. So there it is.
Mm,
Put them in
Hollywood.
lights, Hollywood style,
Yeah,
and
I
the sparks will
I
fly.
I had a thought about watching that match too. I think it might have been the latest a match has ever ended on East Coast time
Yeah.
because it was a 3 p.m. start, but it was
Mhm.
also or 3 p.m. start Eastern time, right?
Yeah.
No, well, yeah, in theory, but
For,
because of the time change, it was 4 o'clock.
yeah.
I'm making this very complicated, but it was a 4 p.m. start time. And there was all of this extra time at the
Mhm.
end of the match, like 13 minutes, and then went even longer after that. So the match finished like after 6 p.m.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's ever been a match that has finished at 6 p.m. Now, partially that's just kind of a fluky thing because the
Yeah.
clocks did change in England, and now we're kind of aligned again on time. But yeah, so anyway, it's kind of fun though. It was on a Saturday at 6 o'clock to be watching the Premier League while we're making dinner. It was great.
Yeah,
Super
yeah,
fun.
it's like a friend. You're having a good time, and you never want them to leave. Just stick around. Open another bottle of wine, Premier League.
Yeah.
Let's keep this party going.
Well, why don't you? Can I see your team, Brandon? I'm curious how things turned out. I believe you had a pretty solid game week 30 in the end, right?
Yeah. So if you want to check us out on our YouTube channel, you can see us sharing our screens. Let's see. I'll pop it up here, and there's the fixture ticker. And let's pop over to the points. So I finished on 66. So what you're seeing on screen is 65 points, but that will be +1 for Saliba, who honestly had one of his Rolls Royce Saliba games. And
Mm-hmm.
Saliba is a great defender for Arsenal, but sometimes he has those games where he's the last man and he'll slip or something goes on.
Sure,
But it was
sure.
like everything Saliba was doing, especially down the stretch of that match, was just so composed. And I was so impressed. So the bonus point richly deserved by Saliba. The decision I had to
Yeah.
make going into the deadline was, do I make a defensive transfer because Botman was out and I didn't want to
Right.
play Kabore?
Yep.
And do I make a defensive transfer looking ahead to the doubles in 34? So I was thinking about either Virgil van Dijk
Mm-hmm.
or Branthwaite on Everton. The problem with
Yep.
Branthwaite is it's Everton and they're not a great source of points.
Away
And
match.
yeah,
You had to think they were going to concede. Away to Bournemouth as well.
you did. It was just kind of a looking ahead, and how badly did I not want to start Saliba or Ake? And obviously, I think when you really think about it, City and Arsenal, two great teams, as the result shows, both could end up on a clean sheet. So I felt justified there. The Van Dijk thing was even more interesting in that I wasn't ready to spend that much on a defender, because that would make it even more difficult for me to get Salah going into game week 31. So now I have 2 free transfers going into 31. We'll talk about how maybe I want to use those to get Salah in, because he'll be the biggest captain pick facing Sheffield United. It was a very weird Saturday for me, and I love Saturdays that end on a high note, because it was really down to Palmer's brace and Son blanking, and then when Son finally clinches the goal and the 3 bonus, Solanke's got his goal, and then Pau Torres gets the clean sheet.
Your deep love of Pau Torres, which has been unrewarded for basically the entire season, right? I think you've had him for like most of the season. Never once has it worked out until this game week.
Yeah, so I'm pretty chalk in the attack with Palmer, Son captain, and Solanke my only returner otherwise. So it was the Saliba clean sheet and bonus and the Pau Torres clean sheet that really did put me over the line. Finish on 66 points, and I'll get yet another clean sheet. FPL Game Week has me currently up to 419K overall, 1759. So I just continue the slow march to the top 100K if I can get there.
Yeah, I mean, what is this like? If you look at your Game Week history, I mean, you must have something like, is it 10 green arrows in a row or something like that?
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this is my 9th in a row. And it's great. I mean, I've just my rank is dwindling now. And obviously the farther up the food chain you go, the harder it is to get the chunkier green arrows. So this is why.
Yeah, it's a sign that things are working, though. Yeah,
things are working. And we're about to blow them all up ahead of game week 34 for the double. But this is why we seek to blow our teams up, is because the capitalizing on the upcoming doubles is the only way you can really make that jump. So you're kind of in a similar position, but on the front foot. You're about 20 points higher than me, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see what you're up to over there, because you sought to bench your defensive assets. Gabriel was on the bench, right?
I only have it was sort of a tricky decision, I suppose, whether to. I had Ake and Gabriel, and to me, I just thought, well, Ake feels like they're the home team, right? It's probably a slightly safer pick over Gabriel, maybe a little bit less goal threat. Although honestly, Ake probably had the best chance to score in the entire match in the first half. And then, of course, he pulls up with an injury, which is just really, really annoying.
Not the first one of your weekend.
No. So Lascelles pulls up with an injury. Ake pulls up with an injury. Gordon gets a red card late, and Watkins goes off at halftime. And then Saka seems like he might be injured as well, right? He looked like he was basically limping off the pitch at the end of that match too.
Yeah, the man's always limping.
He's always limping off the pitch. That's true. I expect we'll see him on Wednesday. So what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4 players very likely out. I wouldn't be quite as worried, except Game Week 31 kicks off on Tuesday. It's one of the reasons we're recording early this week, is to get ahead of Game Week 31, give people a little extra time to listen to the pod. But I think Watkins apparently it's a hamstring issue. I'd be shocked if he starts at midweek. You rarely, if ever, see players get rushed when they've got a hamstring injury, because it's so easy to re-aggravate. So
it's like driving on a flat tire, basically.
Yeah. So so the Gordon red was super annoying. Actually, it really hurts my flexibility for Game Week 30. Remarkably, it didn't actually really hurt me from he got 3 assists in the match, so basically just chalked off one of the assists. It knocked him from 11 to 8. So and that third assist had come kind of late in the match. So I was like, let's just pretend he never got that assist, and we'll just stick with the 8.
He had a great game. He continues to look great, but it is annoying now that he's out for 1 week, because you kind of just want to keep rolling with that form.
Exactly. And it's another home match, and he's been, they're home to Everton. And so, and Lascelles, unfortunately, now he's out for 6 to 9 months. I mean, it's kind of insane. Nice. Like, just another He's really, unfortunately, I just don't. He's one of those guys. He reminds me of like Thomas Vermaelen or something like that. There's just like some of these guys who are really talented center backs, and they just can't stop getting injured. And that's sort of been the story with the Sellers for years. And so that probably might. I mean, it might even end his Newcastle career, right? Because he was already kind of a backup option, and now he's out into 2024, 25. I mean, I'm sure he'll stay on the bench, or because I'm sure they'll keep him around, right? He was the captain before.
Club captain, has been there for a long time.
Exactly, beloved player, and so unfortunately that puts me in a pretty tricky spot for Gameweek 31. I have 2 transfers though. I also have not brought in Salah yet, and so looking ahead to Gameweek 31, so no Gordon, no Salahs. Watkins probably not, Ake probably not too. So I am in a position now where I'm probably going to take a minimum -4. I can't imagine taking anything less than a -4 this week. The way it sets up, I have
wild card.
Still no wild card. Still not leaning towards a wild card. It's pretty committed to the Gameweek 35 wild card decision.
Same. You and I are on the same page there.
Yeah. And so the moves for me, and they're probably very similar to moves that you're considering, honestly, would be Watkins to Darwin, Son to Salah, and then because I probably need another defender, I'm probably going to go Ake to Bradley. And I don't really love going Bradley because I don't see him as a long-term option for Liverpool. But I literally have, if I make these 2 moves, I have exactly 4.2 million available to me. And the only option that really makes sense at 4.2 million is Bradley. And lo and behold, they play Sheffield in 2 days or 3 days time, right? I think they play on Thursday. So it kind of, even though I don't love it as a long-term move, if you're going to take a -4 for a defender, let it be before a home match against Sheffield United. It's probably one of the better times you could do it.
Yeah, I'm going a slightly different direction in that I am committed to holding on to Son. So it's Watkins out to Rodrigo Muniz at Fulham, which I have to go that low because I want to turn Phil Foden into Salah. And so the Foden to Salah move leaves me with like 5.2, I think. So, and I love the idea of getting Nunez. I would totally get Nunez if I could afford it because I'm loath to bring in Muniz because he doesn't double in 34. And I have exactly the number of transfers I want right now to get 5 additional doublers for game week 34. But what I think the plan is turning into for me is I will transfer Son out to Odegaard at some point ahead of 34, and that's the money that I will then use to turn Muniz into Darwin. So Muniz kind of comes in and then immediately goes out, or like after a couple of game weeks. It's generally not like the optimal way to play, to bank a transfer in that way, but I think that the bottom line is it's that important to get Salah in ahead of 31. I would say. I would argue.
I mean, the argument for keeping Son is it makes sense too. I mean, it's something I probably have to think about a little more myself. I mean, I guess the alternative is you could go with I'm forgetting his name. Who is the other forward for Bournemouth? The
Semenyo.
Semenyo. You could go Semenyo, double up with the Bournemouth forwards.
That's true. That's a good point.
And that would at least, of course, that probably means you just don't have Darwin for the double. And I don't know if that's so bad or not. Like I'm honestly not sure. I mean, it's sort of it's kind of hard to say. I mean, he really didn't do anything in today's match, and you would have expected him to be. I mean, it's the Diaz and Salah show right now. I mean, Diaz has been spectacular the last 10 weeks. I mean, he's been he's been terrific. So and I honestly think Diaz versus Odegaard for 34 is another discussion that we're going to have as we get closer to that week, right? I mean, maybe Diaz is actually the preferred option there.
Odegaard means you don't have double Arsenal defense, and based on the display away at the Etihad, the way Arsenal were so organized and committed to I mean, I don't know how fortunate someone would argue that Arsenal were to keep that clean sheet, but those are 2 amazing fantasy picks, Gabriel and Saliba.
I don't think they're that fortunate. I mean, I think they I mean, Man City had no. I mean, I'm trying to think of what would okay. So there was the Ake chance on the corner where he basically it wasn't like even like a missed chance really. I mean, he saw the ball, he hit it, and Raya was in the perfect spot. Right, there was really nothing. Nobody did anything wrong from like a Man City attacking perspective there. But I mean, I'm trying to think if there was another good chance in the entire match. I mean, Gabriel Jesus had a couple of opportunities, a couple balls that maybe a better forward. I mean, a better finisher.
Wow, shots
I should say.
fired.
Well, listen, I mean, Gabriel Jesus is a great player. He's not a great forward, right? I mean, he's not a great finisher at least. And is that a problem for Arsenal? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say sometimes.
Just going by the numbers, the XG, FBref hasn't posted the XG yet, so I'm just going off of FootMob. The XG for Man City in the match was 0.95, so just basically a goal, and it was 0.68 for Arsenal. Yeah, so it's just looking at the XG, Arsenal played incredible defense. It's true. That's just a matter of fact.
Yeah. So, and let's look at the just to compare Son versus Foden for a second in terms of transfers. So Son, away to West Ham, home to Forest, away to Newcastle. They continue to call that Newcastle match a -4 on the difficulty rating. Maybe in terms of winning the match, I think from a fantasy perspective, that's probably a 1 at this point.
It's worth a -4 to get Salah, get Son in. I think is what the site's trying to tell us.
Exactly. And Foden had a pretty, honestly, a pretty poor match today. Didn't really make an impact. Won a couple fouls, I think. Just didn't really do too much. But he was subbed off in the 60th minute. One has to assume he'll start in the Villa match. And it is a slightly better run for him, right? Villa, Palace, and then Luton in 33 as well. Problem for Man City, of course, is that they have Champions League as well. But because the title race is so tight, this isn't exactly a stretch run where Oscar Bob is going to be taking minutes away from their top players. It's not going to be an Oscar Bob
astray on the always
poor Oscar Bob. But I think that so I do think that Foden is going to be really heavily involved. And so I think you can go either way, honestly. I think Son away versus, I mean, I guess honestly, if I had to choose between the two, like just for this week, I would actually take Son. Like if I had to pick who I thought was going to score more points in 31, I would pick Son. But looking long term, I think I just want to bank this Darwin transfer. The other question that I do want to think about a little bit, not really for 31, but with an eye towards 34, is whether we can get away with no Holland for a game week. I mean,
based on current evidence, it's ridiculous. We paid.
So he's 14 million. He's 14 million. Hasn't had double-digit return since 24. Has had one double-digit return going back to game week 12. Right. So, I mean, one double-digit return in almost 18 weeks. And now, granted, he was injured for a handful of those, but still 2-2, 6-5-8, 2, 13, 5-1. I mean, these are just not massive numbers, and it does feel like he's more isolated than he was in the past. I also think, and maybe I'm just like now everyone's catching stray bullets, but I don't think that KDB is as sharp as we've seen him in past years. I feel like he's not quite like
we had a great comment in the YouTube from Travis, who says the amount of inaccurate balls from KDB in this match stood out to me. 3 out of 19 accurate crosses from him.
Is that right? Arsenal. That's shocking, right? And it feels like what Man City are getting right now is what I sort of think of as the classic Man City goal under Pep, which is first 5 minutes of the match, KDB bursts down the right channel, sends it a perfect cross that somebody gets their head on, right? And often Holland, right? And it's just like, I feel like we're not seeing that kind of goal this season. And and it's just, it feels like we're relying a little more on individual brilliance. Sometimes it's Doku will have a great match, or Foden will have a great match, or Bernardo Silva, but it doesn't feel like the Man City as like a collective are quite as strong this year.
I agree.
I think they might still be the title favorites just because they have so much squad depth, right? They're just so talented, but they are losing players left and right too. I mean, if they lose Ake, they're already without Ederson, and Ederson isn't just like a shot stopper, right? It's like Ederson really starts the attack. Exactly. So I think it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. I think it's the squad depth and the experience they have. That was another sort of like note I made watching City Arsenal is, you see Arsenal is growing in experience. Last season was a big lesson for them, and they're better now. City, just like they've just been through this so many times, KDB in particular. Then so Son, I just going back to the original debate of Foden versus Son. Son doesn't have the European commitments. He's playing in the 9 slot. He's got the pens. He has more avenues than Foden does. Is he in the form of his life in the way Foden kind of is at the moment? You know, last few matches accepting? No. But I don't know. What did you think about that Spurs performance against Luton? I mean, it's sweet. Luton was again with the reverse fixtures. Spurs didn't play that great against Luton earlier in the season.
Just classic Spurs. Let in a cheap goal early, and then battle back and just sort of. I don't know. I thought like. What did I think about that Spurs match? I don't know. I thought it was it was a little bit like the actually very similar to the Liverpool Brighton match today, where early goal conceded, almost the exact same minute, I think, for those 2 opening goals conceded. But you always felt like they were going to win, right? Liverpool and then Spurs yesterday. And I thought, it was a really nice. The goal at the end was actually basically a classic Son goal, like what I would almost consider to be a vintage Son goal, right? Off of a corner, he does everything. That goal is a Son goal through and through, right? Like burst down, passes it up to Werner, and then the pullback and the
takes up the perfect position in the box, and even though there are like 3 defenders in front of his shot,
doesn't matter.
It squeaks in. Oh my God, we haven't even mentioned as Son captainers the most excruciating moment of the
hitting
game
both
week.
Sides of the post.
In the first half, he goes around Kaminsky and hits both posts. Oh my God. Yeah, that was a killer.
Yeah. Okay. Why are we not considering captaining Palmer more often, by the way? It is ridiculous how good he's been. So game week 32, he is away to Sheffield United. That's this upcoming Sunday, April 7th, Brandon. Mark my words, I will be captaining Cole Palmer in game week 32. Okay? Mark it down right now.
Okay, let's see. Just for fun, what will you be missing out on? Let's see. What do the other? What are the other marquee fixtures?
That's true. We won't be doing a main feed pod. Well, Spurs host Forest, Liverpool, Man United, and let's see, who do Man City are away to Palace. I feel good about this one. I think
you're going to be going up against Holland captainers, and what we've just said about Holland, I think you're on the right side of history right now.
Who's captaining Holland for 32? I'm sorry, like we're all gonna have Salah. I mean, I think I would go Salah over Holland for basically every week right now. I mean, until we see Holland play better, I don't even know what to say really. I mean, it's like I'm not saying that it's necessarily his fault, right? I think a lot of it is a function of Man City, but because this is sort of his role is to be a big target man up front, right? He's not Gabriel Jesus. He's not going back and winning the ball at midfield, really, right? I mean, he can get a lung busting run and a counterattack or something like that, but that wasn't the style that Arsenal were playing today, right? That wasn't what they were going to. Arsenal were never going to expose themselves to a counterattacking goal in a match like this, right? It was just, the couple of times that there was like a run, like late when Gabriel Martinelli had the ball, they still were only sending like 3 or 4 men forward, right? It was still they were still keeping everybody back. I'm not sure Gabriel M. Do we know how to say his last name? Have we ever figured that out?
Well, I think you have it right. It's just using great actress Juliana Margulies as a comp. That's wrong. I'm sure it's wrong, but it's fine. It's fine. People know who we're talking about.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm not sure he crossed the halfway mark, except maybe on a couple of corners. Arsenal only had like 2 corners in the match.
Yeah. Well, should we do, before we get into our quick fire sort of needs for game week 31, do a little shout out for the Super League?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's make this the always cheating shout out corner, Brandon. And while we're getting that Super League ready, I want to just quickly shout out our Patreon. Everybody loves Patreon shout out, right? It's everyone's favorite moment of every podcast. I know that. And so patreon.com/alwayscheating where you can go to support the podcast. We do an extra podcast each week. We will certainly do one this Thursday. We'll have lots to talk about after game week 31 wraps. And we also have the Discord, which is going all the time. And we have meetups that are planned. In fact, we're going to be you're in town from Toronto, Brandon.
Yes,
You know,
I am.
you're making your big return. So on Saturday we're going to be watching matches at the Smithfield Hall. So if you're in New York and you want to come by, please do
Yes,
so. And you've
please.
got a Toronto meetup planned, right, for later
Yeah,
in
it's
April?
it's the North American tour for Always Cheating on April
Yeah.
13th. We'll be doing the meetup in Toronto. I think it's going to be I don't know. I have two venues that I'm trying to like figure out. So I will post it to the Always Cheating feed. And there are a number of people who reached out to me, and I'll be reaching out directly to you. I've got a little sort of email group I'm putting together. So April
Okay.
13th, if you want details and can't find them, hit us up.
Okay. Well. So patreon.com/always cheating is where you can go to say thank you. Even if you don't want the extra podcast or the Discord, but you just want to, you enjoy the podcast and want to say thanks, that's
Yeah.
patreon.com/always cheating is where you can go. If you win your mini league this year, and we were helpful, Brandon, you can do it there as well. We don't run the podcast during the off season, or we don't run the Patreon either. So June is free for all Patreon supporters. We don't like cancel the Discord. It's just a free month for everybody. So always cheating Super League top 10 though, Brandon. In 10th, we have Joe Costello. In 9th, Matthew Allen. In 8th, Jake Holton. I'm really actually able to pronounce most of these names this week, Brandon. That's a nice change. In 7th is Loritz Pust. In 6th, getting a little harder. In 6th is Nick Villaris. 5th is Peter Hefsmo Steege. In 4th is Chris McMenamin. 3rd is Peter Stead. 2nd is Christian Larich. And in 1st, the USS MacAllister. That's a great team name, by the way.
Yes.
Ben Houghton is in 1st. Ben Houghton is 10th in the world as well. So congrats to Ben. 62 points in the game week. Beats me by 2 points. By the way, I finally cracked the top 300K, Brandon. I'm at 298. That was the first time the entire season. Took 30 weeks to get there. So I feel feel very good about that. Even if I did lose approximately 9 of my players to injury this week. So
it's
so
like you can't make an omelet, Josh. That's how FPL goes.
No, it's true. So well, let's look ahead to game week 31. I mentioned before we want to keep this pretty rapid just because it's such a quick turnaround time. I think it makes sense to get right into it. But I will share the fixtures here for anybody who's watching on YouTube.
YouTube.com.
So just a reminder though that the game week kicks off on Tuesday. Quite a busy. I feel like usually when you've got the midweek matches and the kickoff on Tuesday, you start off kind of late, right? And usually it's like a 2-3 matches, but we've got a meaty 5 for you, Brandon, on Tuesday.
I love this.
Yeah. So let's see. I mean, Newcastle, Everton. That by recent standards, that it will be a 6-5 Newcastle. Newcastle will go down. They'll go down 5-1 early and then score 5 goals late. I mean, they're really going to be in trouble though, right? Because they've lost all of their center backs, and they're not going to have Anthony Gordon either. So I guess thankfully they have the oh my gosh,
Alexander Isak.
Well, yeah, but who is the left wing who came on and scored the brace for them? They have
Harvey Barnes.
Harvey Barnes is back too now. Exactly. Yeah. So I guess Harvey Barnes will certainly get the start for this match.
I just going back to the Isak shout out. I feel like he's been so under the radar this season. He did have the injury break, and that just kind of killed his fantasy stock. Yeah. But he's been incredible since he came back. Both of his pens were incredibly taken. Didn't mention Cole Palmer's Panenka. Like, he is true to his nickname of Cold Palmer. That was incredibly cold.
Yeah. Nor do we mention Mooney's with the rare bicycle kick. The rare bicycle kick where he's in such good form. He did a bicycle kick without falling over. Like, how often do you see that? A bicycle kick where he basically stayed on his feet. It was remarkable.
Guys in Super Saiyan form. But I don't know how you go into this Newcastle Everton match owning any fantasy assets feeling good.
I know. I mean, I in my case, I don't know. Do I start Dubravka or do I start Areola? They Spurs or West Ham. Oh, right. He's injured. Right. So I guess it will be Dubravka. Great. Yeah. So wonderful.
I have Dubravka. Going up against Dominic Calvert-Lewin, fine. Maybe you found the one angle of this match that's appealing for fantasy managers.
I think more and more, I think I'm just going to I'm just leaning towards having Raya for 34. You know, I don't really trust any other.
Simple, elegant.
Yeah, the only problem is, I mean, the problem is maybe Ben White. I don't know. I'm going to decide what to do there. I don't love Saliba just because he just doesn't offer enough of an attacking return, right? So you might as well just have Raya in that case. But
Yeah.
so Forest, Fulham. I don't really know. I mean, that was a weird match for Fulham. I thought they were going to win it late. I thought we were actually going to have the second match of the day that started 3-1 and ended with a 4-3 win for the team that was down. But still, I mean, to concede 3 to Sheffield was kind of surprising. Honestly, it was 4, very marginal offside goal too.
Well, you were talking about the G-Tech at the start of the pod and how Brentford are good, be it under the lights and at home.
Yeah,
I don't think we've really mentioned once that these clubs have come back from international break, and often that creates an awkward moment for form. And plus, Fulham are away, and as good a season as Fulham are having, sometimes they're just going to have a bad day at the office. They did show how good they were to come back in the way they did. You play 10 more minutes and they win that match. Tom Carney maybe could have won it, but I don't think there are any real takeaways in terms of Fulham. I mean, as a Leno owner, I'm not stoked about what I've seen from their clean sheet.
There's who are you going to have? Like, there's nobody. There's no goalkeeper that's delivering anything right now. I mean, outside of, I guess, Raya, right? I mean, the Arsenal defense is the only thing I might actually really trust right now in terms of fantasy, consistent fantasy returns. Bournemouth Palace. I thought that Solanke played well. All things considered, had a yellow, but scored a goal. That was not the focus of my Saturday. But I had the goal rush on. They showed a couple of goal events. And then West Ham Spurs, and so Areola. What I feel like Areola went off for what must have been the 5th time this season. How many times has Areola gone off at halftime in matches so far this year?
It's so rare that a keeper actually comes up because it's detrimental to the team, and often keepers is odd. So the assessment is that it's an abductor strain.
Okay.
And the prognosis from Ben Dinnery, injury expert, is there's a 25% chance, which is as low as it gets without being ruled out, that he'll play midweek.
Especially with the midweek.
Seems like trouble for owners. But I agree. He's like constantly coming off. But you can see like Fabianski is like Mr. Burns style, like twiddling his fingers in those moments on the sideline.
Yeah, I think Burnley Wolves. I think that there might be an opportunity there to consider Ait-Nouri. I think that if you were leaning towards starting to target some defenders for Gameweek 34, I think that Ait-Nouri would be a place to go. I've always been a little reluctant with him just because I've owned him in previous seasons, and he's kind of like he's one of those guys who kind of moves in and out of the squad a little bit. But I think that he might be an option for Gameweek.
He should have wiped out the Villa clean sheet pretty early on.
That's true. Yeah. And I mean, what his price, I think it's he's available for 4.6 million, so pretty affordable. I really wish there was a cheapy 4 million option for Wolves, because they would be one of the teams I'd be targeting this week. Again, I'm going to be, if I decide to go, the other move would be just to go -8 and just really go for it. And I don't know. It's a possibility. Let's see, Brandon. Let's see how saucy I get over the next 48 hours. What are you? And then, so Wednesday and Thursday are really before we start talking about our own squads for 31, Arsenal hosts Luton. Hopefully Saka is available for that match. If so, he might be the kind of only captain alternative to Salah that we might have for Game Week 31. Brentford Brighton. I don't know. It's a night match, another night match for Brentford. So I assume they're going to win or at least get some kind of return out of that match. There's a thing called double chance in betting, Brandon, where you basically you can bet on a win or a draw. And I will tell you, Brendan, I bet on double chance for Brentford in last night's match. And what a thrilling final minute that game was. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe they're about to lose this match. And then they went back and conceded it. So
Mason Mount of all people, like that was one of the most random matches of all time.
I couldn't believe it. I missed him coming onto the pitch, and I was like, wait, Mason Mount just scored. And then we've got Man City, Aston Villa. I think that could be a really interesting match. Without Watkins, I feels like that match would be trouble for Villa.
Yep.
Man City absolutely have to win this one. And then we got kind of the big one on Thursday, which is Chelsea. No, I was gonna say Chelsea Man United, I guess from a like kind of TV rating standpoint, but from a fantasy point of view, it has to be Liverpool Sheffield United. I think, to kick off our Game Week 31 discussion here, Brandon, can you make an argument for anyone? You can pick Salah versus the field. Okay. I will give you literally every single player in fantasy. Okay. Either in one side you have Salah, right? And the other side you have the field. Literally every single player in fantasy. Will anyone in fantasy score more points than Salah this week?
Are you suggesting I have the option to field every available player in the game
Like, let's
on the
say,
pitch at once?
no, but I'm just saying,
And
like,
see
let's
if they
say,
all outscore Mo Salah?
I'm just saying, let's say we took a bet, right? We both put,
Sure.
$10 on it, or a handshake friendly wager, right?
Yeah.
And I got Salah, right? The only goal of the bet would be who's going to score the most points in Game Week 31. Okay. Like what single player. So I will take Salah, and I will give you literally every single player in fantasy. Who are you taking for Game Week 31?
I feel like I'm taking Son.
I mean, are you taking or I should say, would you take the field, or would you want Salah in that case? If I gave you the option,
I would want Salah. I would definitely want Salah.
I explained that in the most confusing possible way.
Maybe
so
maybe I take another Liverpool player. Maybe now you're in the realm
Darwin,
of I mean, the whole point is speculation, but this is like true speculation. Right. You're like, maybe Nunez has one of his good games.
Sure. Yeah, they could keep a clean sheet, and Van Dijk could score 2 goals or something.
In that same vein, maybe Haaland has a return to form match against Aston Villa. Certainly City would be on the front foot, but Villa play really good defense.
Exactly.
And Martinez is capable of all sorts of goalkeeping heroics. So I don't
it's
love
hard
it.
to see them getting exactly. It's hard to see a well-coached, strong defensive team like Villa getting run over in that match. I think they'll probably lose, but I don't see it being maybe it's like a 2-0 win or something like that.
And Luton just have not been a team to bet against fantasy-wise. You think of I'm all about the return, the opposite legs this podcast, but this was at Kenilworth Road where Declan Rice had to score the last-minute winner, and it looked like Arsenal were not going to get the 3 points. So it's not like it's going to be a wide-open, crazy game for Arsenal, and we don't even know what Saka's fitness is. So Son does feel like the most informed, healthy player apart from Salah, but I don't take that bet because it's like just the way Salah looked against Brighton was absolutely insane. He was on every attack.
When he's feeling good, right? So when Salah's out of form and not feeling great and he scores a goal, it's like sometimes he's like not even happy, and it's like he's just like get away from me, like I should have done this earlier. But sometimes when he's in good form and playing well, he does a goal celebration like he did today, where he just throws up his hands. It's just like I am the Egyptian king. I knew I would do this, and that is what you want to say. It is you and I totally agree to not have Salah and for him to only score 7 points in today's match was a massive, hugely lucky break for us. And for anyone who captain Salah, it's a thankfully he scored, so it's not like a complete heartbreaker, but certainly he could have scored a lot more in that match.
So we got a question in the chat actually from Michael Scott for you, Josh. Not getting the reluctance to play the wild card when it could clearly benefit your team. Now, we kind of talked a lot about this late last week to our Patreon supporters about the logic of waiting and holding. And Salah is kind of the crux of it. Like, we can get Salah without wild carding. And, well, actually, no, Son is the crux of it, because to hold Son through his blank in Game Week 34, then the wild card is less necessary to get Salah in and more necessary to get Son back in. I had the double. So I think that's a interesting way to look at that.
I mean, for me, it's certainly with the number of injuries that have come into my team, it makes things a little more compelling for sure. But if I had a free hit left, I would certainly be more likely to consider it as well. But to me, I just feel like I can, if I take a -4, I have a team for game week 31 that I really like, and I get 2 more players, maybe 3 if you include Bradley, for 34. I just feel like I'm getting closer and closer to a 34 that I like. And I just don't know how I can build for 34 and for 37. It feels almost impossible for me. And so I just feel like it's easier because there's not enough weeks, after 34 to build a team for 36 and 37, right? And those doubles, you're going to have Chelsea, Spurs, Man
Manchester
City,
United.
Brighton, Man United, and Newcastle. Your beloved Newcastle, Brandon, will also play twice.
Teams we kind of don't want to be fully invested in at the moment, or teams we're currently appropriately invested in, like Chelsea in particular. So
Yeah.
let me throw another Salah based betting question at you. If
Okay.
I gave you the effect of all the rest, for you to not get Salah in game week 31, would you ever find yourself on the side of the bet where you could say maybe it's not worth getting Salah this week, or it's like regardless of your situation as a fantasy manager, you need to purchase Salah?
I don't think I understand your question. Are you paying me not to get Salah?
It's not really much of a bet. Let's scratch that. Basically, I'm
Okay.
asking you a direct question here. Is there any situation you can dream up in which it would be okay to forego Salah in game week 31?
Sure. Well, sure. I mean, I think that you could go with Darwin. If Saka were healthy, I think it'd be a slightly easier decision. The fact that he may not play or may not play as well, right? Just because of he's not like in the form he was in pre-injury, pre-international break. Then I think you could just go with a solid captaincy. Maybe you bring in Darwin, and that sort of offers you a little bit of a kind of Sheffield United shield. I think Son could go off as well. So I think it's fine. It's just I really think that Salah has a chance of having a really fantastic return in this match. It's not that hard for me to get him, right? And so and it also he plays in 34. So I make that I just it sort of solves that problem as well. Inevitably, I was going to want him for 34, so I'll just do it now and take it. And so again, I just think that with to go back to the question of why I'm not wildcarding now, I just think that I am not that far away from a game week 34 squad that I really like, and I think if I wildcarded, I might get a slightly better version of it, and I guess I'd have a team that I could bench boost in that case. But if I wait until 35. I just feel like I can do both, right? Which is I can use regular transfers to get a 34 squad that I really like, that is comparable to the other like wildcardy squads. I won't bench boost that week, and then because you have 2 doubles in 36 and 37 for Spurs and Chelsea, I can get 6 players from those squads. Now, granted, as you've said, what 6 do I want? I have no idea. Like Malo Gusto, he's gone. Maybe I only have 2 from Chelsea. I probably have their keeper, right? And then for Spurs, it's a little bit easier, especially if maybe you go Madison. If Richarlison gets back into the starting lineup, I'm not sure he will though. I almost wonder if they like what Werner brings, even though you get a lot of that Werner stuff, which is the fact that he can't score. He's not very aggressive, but it's like, especially it was funny because the first goal for Spurs was an own goal, and you were like, man, just roll it to let Werner blow that one. Let it go to him. He would have hit the crossbar
doesn't need
somehow.
this in his life.
Yeah, exactly.
Werner's the one who needs it. So
yeah. I guess you were sweating Saliba today. Not there was any risk of him starting, but still, you didn't want to get.
You're looking at minus points on the bench. You don't want that defender to come on for sure. So you and I are on the same page. It's kind of the reverse of the argument 2 free hits back in game week 29. Sort of like, well, I have the power to get a better squad immediately. I'm going to play the free hit. And now we're arguing of like, well, we have the power to get a good squad without playing a chip. And what, with hindsight being what it is, we're now quite envious of people who have the ability to free hit 34.
Be amazing.
This is very useful.
Yeah.
So now we're kind of trying to get into that camp and save the wild card for when we think it might be a little more useful.
I cannot believe I'm just pulling up my team again for 31. I have
Yeah,
6 flags. A great theme park, Brennan. Just turned into
wonderful theme park. Yeah.
a great fantasy team. And I think I probably should have 7 flags, really, because I think that Ake will be flagged as well. I suppose
Oh
Gabriel
yes.
will
Yeah.
lose his flag. He should be fine for the Luton
Yeah.
match. Saka, again, I'm not positive about that one. But there was a question from Stephen Curtis about how he felt about making early transfers this week to beat the price changes. I looked on FPL statistics. I mean, you can go to a million places to look for price changes. But I looked earlier. I didn't see any of the key assets set to rise yet. I assume that will change over the course of the day. I would love to wait one more day because if we had even a little bit of clarity on Watkins, I think would make things a little bit easier, right? Like if Watkins were healthy, that might change my transfer strategy a little bit for Game Week 31, right? Because I just think that given how many flags I've got in my squad, if I were able
Yeah.
to move some other players around, like maybe drop Gordon for
I got some news for
Sarabia
you,
instead.
Josh.
Yeah.
I've got some news for you. Currently at FPLstatistics.com, Watkins is 108% to drop, and
Dang.
Salah is 106.5 to rise.
Dang. Double
So
dang.
the time is now. Now,
Okay.
with Watkins, I wonder if the injury is somewhat irrelevant with the tough fixtures for Villa coming up. He was being sized up for transfers regardless.
Yeah.
They don't double in 34, and it's just kind of like, what's the upside beyond Watkins just having an incredible season to keeping him? So I'm not really sweating on him. I think he has to go regardless. So I'm going to move early and try and catch these price rises.
Now that I know that too, I mean, I could practically do it on this podcast. So I'll show you, Brandon. I mean, if I make the moves that I'm considering, my hand is really kind of forced, honestly. So it's go Son out, Watkins out. I bring in Salah, and then I bring in Darwin. Okay. And then I'm 0.9 short. So I got to find some money somewhere. So then I go to my boy Ake here, and I'm at 4.2 million, right? So if I go to our little tracker here, okay. So do you get Branthwaite, right? Who's 4.2 million. He will, however, double in 34.
Yes.
So
yes.
yeah, do I get Branthwaite or do I get Bradley? I think that's really the question. I mean, because you really, I mean, the question is, do you want
Bradley cuts you off of, I guess, any other Liverpool assets.
Yeah,
but I don't know that
true.
I mean, are you gonna? What is there a situation where you end up with a different Liverpool asset? Like
Well, sure. I mean, because I think I could turn Foden into Luis Diaz.
Yeah.
Right. And especially if I plan to go for an Arsenal defender for 34. So that is true. I mean, the other side of it is just that you have to think that Bradley has a great chance of getting a return in 31.
Yes.
The question is just how long do we have with Bradley in that role, right? When does Trent is expected back April 7th. That's what the site is saying. But even when he's back, presumably he's not just going to be starting every single week, right? Like I have to think that they're going to have to play him sort of carefully. So
Trent is typically once he's back, he plays 90 every week. But just given how many injury concerns he's had, he's never been through a phase of his career like this before.
Yeah.
So I tend to agree with you. He's still feels risky, making
Fulham
them
away,
both risky.
Fulham away, Everton away in 34. I probably only see one clean sheet out of those two anyway for the Liverpool players. So I think it's interesting. I think there could be an argument for Branthwaite. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, I really have kind of avoided ever since I had Pickford early on in the season and it didn't work out. I mean, it wasn't that I thought he was terrible. It was just kind of bad luck. It wasn't like they were conceding 5 goals in every match, but I just could not keep a clean sheet with them. And I think I just sort of wrote off Everton for a lot of the season after that.
Yeah, there is something about Branthwaite. I think, I mean, he's got a handful of attacking returns. He's not like a great fantasy asset, full stop. But he has shown the ability to sort of pick up a set piece return. It feels like a good pairing with Tarkowski, even though Everton still continue to struggle this season. It seems to be the best formula that Dyche has hit upon for for playing at the back. So I feel like he's decent value just for getting minutes, X minutes
Yeah.
for Branthwaite and leaving the door slightly open for a lucky return.
Okay. I am really gonna think this one through a little bit,
Yeah.
Brandon. And this is I have what, like 6 hours, like T minus T minus 6 hours to make this work. I mean, the thing that is appealing is you would get a Newcastle away, which isn't optimal, but it's a Newcastle squad that, right, they're certainly, like, they concede goals, so he could get into some kind of attack and return in that match. They also will be without Gordon, which I would assume will, could impact their attack a little bit. And then you do get Burnley at home in 32 for Everton, and then you get the two home matches in 34, Forest and Liverpool. Obviously, Liverpool not ideal, but again, it's a home match, and Forest is not a bad match either, right? So I
It's
think,
going to be an
yeah,
incredible 6-pointer between those teams.
yeah, exactly. And so I think that the possibility of getting something from him, or, like, if you think of these, and again, a -4 for a defender, not optimal, but it's a forced decision because it's how I would get Darwin and Salah in. And so if you think about it through that lens, it's a little more acceptable because you're making a
Yeah.
move with game week 34 in mind. Again, like this is the goal, is to maximize those double game weeks and not ignore the ones in front of you. Like, not
Yeah.
completely, right? Like, I wouldn't, if they were playing Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal in the next three, I would not consider it, right? But given that they got Burnley in 32 and two home matches in 34, I think it's, it's a possibility.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And the simple sort of practice of diversification in your fantasy team. And
Exactly.
there aren't a lot of strong teams in the 34 double. Arsenal and Liverpool will carry a lot of managers
Yeah.
on their own.
Yep.
So just getting some, like, just Wolves and Everton players, they might not feel sexy, but you're just kind of it's a fun gamble.
Filling
It's
out the you're filling out your
filling out the
11.
portfolio.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I think, again, we want to do this to stay pretty rapid, really focus on 31 here. Brendan, do you have an MF? Oh my gosh, I forgot what is our strays? Our
Sure. Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
we talked about this because
Mhm.
what happened, we never thought it would happen, but
Mhm.
Strays actually left the movie theaters.
No,
Um,
no,
but
this
what?
is. I
But
hope you're
but
joking.
you found you found a red box
Oh,
at
good.
a
I found at my local
yeah, you found a
Walmart. I
local
found a
red
red
box,
box. Oh,
yeah,
good,
at
good.
a creepy
A lot
looking
of
gas
Walmarts in
station.
Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but the only movie left there to rent was Free Guy. So we reached out to the producers of the movie Free Guy, starring Ryan Reynolds, he's really interested and invested in football with the whole Wrexham FC thing
That's
going on. So
true. Yeah, that's
so we're
true. Yeah.
changing the Strays dog in them pick of the week to the Free Guy. If you could pick any guy in the fantasy
Uh-huh.
game this week, who would it
Who's your
be?
free guy? Okay.
So my free guy is going to be uh yeah, who is my
Who are you
free
going with?
guy is yeah, who I'm gonna roll the dice
I
here
like you had such a
on.
great lead up there, and then you lost
I put
steam right
I
at
put
the end.
all my brain power into that great pitch for a Ryan Reynolds property. I wonder about Wolves because I was
Mm.
shocked at how sort of uh it wasn't like their best performance. Now,
No,
maybe they're
missing
in
a
the
lot of
same boat
players.
as Fulham coming back from
Sure.
the international break, trying to get back into form. But
Yeah,
them
yeah.
away to Burnley, I wonder if Cunha coming back from injury makes him a fun pick for the
Okay.
midweek fixtures.
Okay. I think Cunha could be fun. I'll go with Odegaard. I think he'd be my free guy of the week if I could. I guess if I wildcarded, I could do this. So maybe I should wildcard Brennan. I don't know. Let's see how I feel in the next 6 hours. But
Wow,
I'm
it's not enough time for you to work through all of the
no.
process. I just
I
don't think it
think
is.
there's a lot of decisions you got to make in fantasy, and sometimes if you pick a path, you should just stay on it.
Yeah.
Unless I don't know, if I get three more injuries in the next 6 hours, if I don't know,
Hmm.
if three more players get jury duty or something like that in the next
It
few
could happen.
hours, and I'm down 9, maybe then I'll change my strategy. But I see Arsenal scoring a bunch. I just think Arsenal and Man City are both going to kind of bounce back from those 0-0s. I mean, I know there's a lot of energy expended in those matches, but I think they're also going to be kind of looking to they're going to feel much more free. This is a very tense match, really a match where neither side could neither side could afford to give up 3 points, right? And so that you end up with a match like this. And so, I do think that I think they're both going to kind of go off. And I think for Arsenal and I don't know, let's say Arsenal 3-0, Man City 2-0. I guess those are like my two predictions for this week. I do think Foden gets some kind of return in this match, bounces back a little bit on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm curious how that goes. It can go two ways. Like there's such an emotional tension when City and Arsenal have to play each other. Is there a come down where it's kind of a muted display midweek by them and they try to bring some of their energy back? Or are they relieved to have that game in the rearview mirror and now they just totally seek to dominate? Obviously, they would prefer the latter. But
I think it's maybe a little bit of a let off. I don't know. I think so because Arsenal just really could, even more than Man City. Arsenal could not afford to lose that game. So
I think,
all right. Well, go ahead.
I can't resist because we did love this movie, Strays. I do think Son will be my vice captain. Okay. I think he's going to have that dog in him against.
I know you're worrying me because I kind of see it as well. I mean, this is why I don't want to go absolutely insane. Like driving Son for a hit already feels kind of crazy. That shows my faith in Salah that I'm planning to do that. But I think your idea about going, with a non-Darwin option is not a bad one. It's something I'm going to give a little more thought to as well. So. Cool. All right. Well, good luck to everybody this week. It's a Tuesday kickoff. Just a reminder. So 1 p.m. Eastern time deadline on Tuesday, 6 p.m. UK time. So be ready. Get your team set up. Set that bus team well ahead. And like me, if you're a little tight on your transfers and your prices, make sure you make them today before the prices change. Or I guess when you're listening to this, maybe it's too late. I don't know. But
we're sorry. If it is.
And it's a slightly shorter pod than usual this week, but thanks everybody for listening. Thanks everyone who joined us on YouTube. And good luck to everybody. We'll be back on Thursday with a Patreon pod. Brandon, do you want to thank our producer patrons?
Absolutely. Huge thanks as always to producer Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, our buddy Chris Howell, Bob Skoon, James Holland, Dave Wagner, Lodall, Nick Wright, Lazarus Yanos, Jesse Halstead, Bruce Kerr, Brian Chin, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock at FPL Merch, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, Buffalo Wild Mings, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Caleb Robbie, Volker Paulson Kruger, Alex Holcomb, James Keatley, The Saint, Bob Fox, Craig Jackson, Shalin F. Kadakia, Terrence O'Donnell, Heath Cram, Thomas Tislop, Noah Louise, Travis Grant, Linus Vennerstrom, Dan Parsons, James C., Matthew Skinner, Frode Jacobson, Brennan, Daniel Hart, Lolly, Ben Coombs, Eric Kite, Gareth H., Rune Sandberg, and Brian Clark. Rate, review, subscribe. Press that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Check us out over there at youtube.com @always cheating. Best of luck in the midweek fixtures. Josh, I'll talk to you later. I think you muted.
I totally muted myself there. Brandon, thank you so much for that nice note. And
we'll fix it in post.
It was so nice that I decided to unmute myself and say thank you. So I'll talk to you soon. Bye.